So go for it, Jess.
Hello, nice to meet you all. I can't see the room, so I'm not sure who's there, but
We have just one in person.
just one's enough.
You want to press
Two's enough.
as well.
Alana. Yeah. So we'll just introduce ourselves and then we'll ask you about yourselves as well. Anya, do you want to start?
So I am an undergraduate at Queen's University Belfast, studying anthropology, and I'm also the National Vice Ambassador for the Applied Anthropology Network UK. And I've done research on intergenerational knowledge sharing in the wine industry in Malta. And then I'm doing my dissertation on mothers on Instagram and how they're creating communities which are really supportive for new mothers or long-time mothers, or, you know, mothers of triplets perhaps, or things like that, but also incorporating advertisements to support their families and how they're kind of walking that line. And that's obviously online research.
Great, thanks. Hi, I'm Jessica Simons. I started out as an IT consultant, did that for 20 years and then became an activist, actually, as sort of part of being the dot-com boom, and ended up being interested in how decisions get made for sort of social justice and sustainability reasons, and did the PhD in anthropology to try and make sense of how societies develop and change, and then did a couple of postdocs on cultural engagement and became really curious actually about emerging technologies again 20 years later, and particularly social media, augmented and virtual reality, and conceptualizing the virtual realm as a realm, this space that we go into and inhabit in the same way that we inhabit the physical world. And what we're seeing with talks around the metaverse is a growing understanding of the digital as not just being tools that you use to make your life easier or harder, but actually the digital enabling virtual realms that people can inhabit in the same way. And so I actually left the universities to set up a company, which is Visioning Lab, to really experiment in the development of this metaverse, 3D realms, whatever it is that's going on. And I've brought my anthropological training with me into what is now a private sector company, and continue to work with universities, but also in the sort of social justice community, as well as in the private sector. So I became National Ambassador for the Applied Anthropology Network because I wanted to stay in touch, not just with anthropologists who are working in outside anthropology, but also with anthropologists who work in academia. So I was delighted to meet Anya when she became ambassador as well. And we've been cooking up different schemes of ways of engaging with people in the academic space. We want to sort of make more of a family of sort of applied anthropologists and anthropologists than we've experienced so far. So we're sort of reaching out into the anthropology community, and we're also experimenting with ways of reaching out to the mainstream audiences, the general public, and raising awareness of anthropology and what it can do and its potential in the UK primarily, but also obviously hopefully working with others internationally as well, because social media is international. Well, this is a sort of start of our collaboration in a way. It's our first main activity. So we want to work with you guys. We want to find out a bit about you, why you came, what interests you about this topic. And then we're going to do a couple of exercises where we will, first of all, ask you for your insights around doing online research, and then we're going to actually have a play with some memes which you'll probably be aware of are key ways of communicating across social media, and can we use memes to communicate some key anthropological ideas. So that's the plan for the next hour and 3/4. But should we now? Yes, and one more thing is that because we work in the Applied Anthropology Network, there is a conference in September, which is really fun, really good to go to. It's in Berlin. It's not very expensive to go, and it draws out some really interesting ideas around how anthropology can be used outside academia. Right, so now we go to you. So tell us a bit about yourselves.
Yes, so we're wondering, do you do research online, or do you not, and why not, and why would you? Should we start?
Nice to meet you. I'm Anna. I do research online.
Turn this so you can see the room.
Hi.
I do research online and offline. So I did a variety of things before doing anthropology as well. And then I kind of slipped into transnational community research online as well. I connected with fan fiction, that's that one. And from there, I found some interesting communities on Reddit about finance. And that's my PhD project now. I'm looking at fintech and how retail investors, so individuals, use their phones to manage their personal wealth, which connects to financial and digital literacy, the support communities that they use online, as well as offline, because there are a lot of meetups from the apps that they use that are kind of supposed to educate people. And that sphere is what I'm interested in. What I'm doing now. So yeah, that's why.
Yeah, interesting. And do you use social media? What's your social media account?
I do have several social media accounts. I'm also part of the TikTok ethnography collective. So I have TikTok, I have Instagram, I have Reddit, I have obviously like WhatsApp, YouTube, all of them, basically. Twitter. I got a Twitter like last year because of academic Twitter. I wasn't on there before. But yeah, I rarely post because I feel like as a private person, as just me, I use it to connect with the people I already know, but I want to use it more to communicate research or to build research communities. That's why I'm here, because I thought it might be a nice workshop and get into that more.
Yeah, and how do we find you? What would be the best sort of point to out of all of those, which ones would you like to share with us? What's your surname?
Roman. So my surname is Anna Roman, but I don't even know. Twitter would probably be the best, but you can tell that I don't use it much because I don't even know my name on Twitter. Give me a second to find it, and then next time maybe the other person can introduce themselves, and then I'll get back to you with that.
Okay, yeah, we'll check it and let us know. All right, well, let's say hello to the next person. Should we go to the lady? What's your name?
In the room here, or
let's go in the room because we're facing you, and then we can find out about Alana.
okay, great. Do you hear me all right?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Okay, great. My name is Katharina Graf. I am working on cooking and the use of digital media in cooking. So I'm not currently using social media to do research, but my research participants are to do their cooking. So I'm studying how they use social media to connect with other people, to exchange recipes, but also to shop, to exchange opinions on things, and also to interact with their machines in the kitchen. But what I plan on doing, and that's where I'm hoping to get some insight today from you guys, is I want to blend basically all the social media and that my research participants use. I want to try that in a second stage of my fieldwork. So basically have an auto-ethnography approach to using social media in the kitchen and for cooking and for shopping and communicating with other cooks. If you want to check out online, there's a blog that my research assistant and I are working on. It's a WordPress blog, and it is Cyborg Cook.
Cyborg Cook.
Cyborgcook.wordpress.com.
We were supposed to post something this morning, it did not yet.
Ah, there it is. Yeah.
That's it, yeah.
Brilliant.
Yeah, I think that's it from me for now.
Fantastic.
Okay, great. Thank you. And we'll yeah, we'll maybe we could think about cooking as one of our sort of key points to think about. And Alana, tell us about yourself. Hang on. Alana's got text here. So if we look in, there you are. Hello. Alana can't speak but can chat. So I'll read it out because you guys don't have access to the Zoom. My name is Alana. I've just finished my PhD with a focus on anthropology of religion with a focus on a Pentecostal church in Brazil. Part of my fieldwork was interacting with the church and its followers online. I'm currently doing a postdoc fellowship at the University of Toronto Department of Religion. And she's currently in Nepal writing about exploring the possibility of new fieldwork, and is in a cafe to have good internet, so doesn't want to talk. So we can hear. Hi, Alana, we can hear from you when you want to. Just I'll keep an eye on chat, so just put any questions or comments you have into the chat and I'll make sure I read them out. Oh, it's fine, you know, this is one of the advantages of digital, is that you can still participate in things even if it's partially. Right, okay. So yeah, so well now let's just sort of have a general chat really. And I realize that we've left off probably one of the most important social media, and this is sort of showing my age to some extent, which is I mean, I've looked at TikTok and it's okay, but it's actually a bit like crack, isn't it? So actually avoid looking at it because, you know, hours pass. So I don't use it very much. But so just to start with, do we think so for social media, do we think that these are the main accounts? Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, TikTok. Are there any others that you see as social accounts that need to be incorporated or included that lots of people use? I'm also particularly interested in people using ones that maybe aren't English language ones. I mean, in China, for example, there is WeChat, isn't there? Should we put that on just because it's so important?
I know you talk about Reddit. Yeah. Reddit.
Yeah, Reddit. Yeah. I mean, Reddit's funny because does everybody know what Reddit is?
Not quite.
What's that? Reddit's funny because it in my mind, Reddit is like an old-fashioned way of communicating because it's text-based forums. And actually, you know, having been involved in the internet for over 25 years, the forums were the first iteration of social communication on the internet, which was just people posted up text, and the texts were in different sort of lists. So it was conversations and discussions. So you put, oh, what do I think about this? And then people replied to that thread, you know. So I tend to think of Reddit as old, but it's hugely popular. We can have a look at it as well. And I also haven't looked at whether or not there is an anthropology thread. Yeah, look. This is the thing that's sort of funny about anthropology, is that, oh, not sure why I went dark. Oh yeah. It's blocked the notifications. There we go. Is that you sort of you go, this is the thing about social media, isn't it, is that you go to it and wherever you are in social media, the thing that you're interested in is present in it, even if you never actually look for it, or it doesn't come to you. If you look for it, it's there. Yeah, and that's something to think about in relation to social media is the problem with that is that people don't notice things that pass them by. They have to look for them. So how do you then get people to look for the topics that you want to engage them on? So as you've done, you can find them, like for example, cooking, but if you want them to find you, that becomes really hard. So we've got WhatsApp, Reddit, any others?
I suppose Tumblr, actually, I didn't think about Tumblr, which I think is the point. I think it kind of flies under the radar a lot for a lot of people.
So tell us a bit about Tumblr, because I don't use that very much.
Well, I think Tumblr was massive with like teenagers in like 2014, 2016. And I think it would probably only be a useful platform if you were kind of studying specific groups and specific users, just because I think it does fly under the radar. So there's not a load, well, there's plenty of people using it, but I don't think there's a load of different like diversified groups on it. I think it would be fantastic to study kind of internet culture as a microcosm, because a lot of things on the internet start on Tumblr. A lot of text posts and stuff like that come from Tumblr, whether it was years ago or now. And I think it's there's like a sort of a very strong sense of community on Tumblr. I think it's people who've been on there for years and years and saw the original posts, and then they come back up and everyone says, oh yeah, I was there when it started. So I think it would be a good platform, but only for certain groups and things. But it would be interesting to see if there were kind of subgroups, or if you could introduce new groups to it in a useful kind of way.
What would you say is sort of distinctive about Tumblr that's different? Like, what's it similar to, and how does it differ?
I'd say it's similar to Instagram in that it's a photo-based platform, but it's also kind of like Twitter in that you can like almost repost things, and you can add comments underneath them, and you can see everyone's comments before, and you can like reply to other people's comments, and stuff like that.
There also like a lot of fan fiction, or like Twitter is more for popular events like politics stuff, but Tumblr is more for like creative stuff.
Yeah, and I think there's a big art community as well, like, and fan art and fan fiction and stuff, definitely.
So that's interesting that Tumblr is seen as for creatives. So is it warmer? You know, is it friendlier than, because Twitter can be seen as a bit of a tough sort of playground where you can get trolled and mistreated, but is Tumblr seen as a place where people are kinder to you?
I think Tumblr is a kinder environment, but I think there's also been issues with Tumblr in that people negatively influence each other. So yes, everyone's a community, but there's like a community attitude. There was a lot of like self-harm and mental health issues that kind of fed into themselves in Tumblr in the early days. So I think it's dangerous in a different way from Twitter, perhaps.
What do you think about WordPress then? Do you see WordPress? Because obviously WordPress is it's a place where you can freely create websites. So I tend to use WordPress to create websites. So the Visioning Lab website is a WordPress website, but you just don't see it. You don't see that it's WordPress because it's very hidden. So for me, it's more like, I'm just looking at, can you even search WordPress for WordPress content?
I was going to say, I don't know if it's necessarily a social platform. I think you have to
know the exact address.
Yeah.
And to actually show up in a Google search, forget about it.
Yeah.
It's meant more like as a by invitation sort of communication tool.
That can be social, right? Because
It
they're
can
like
be,
all the
yes.
comments on
Absolutely. Yes.
It's true. That is true. Yeah, once you've kind of been invited and found the platform, then it can become social, I suppose. with the comments and stuff like that.
Yeah. So in a way that the social bit of social media is what defines it, that you need to be able to engage in a dialogue for it to feel like it's social. Would we agree with that?
I think that leads into the definition of what dialogue is. Because
Mhm.
even with websites, we go into like a dialogue of we click something, the website responds. So it's social only between people, if it's human technical interaction, where do we set the mark for dialogue? I think like generally social media is defined as, I think, Web 2.0 and 3.0. So we should discuss all of these things.
I think as well, people can not necessarily enter into a dialogue and still be using a social media platform. You know, they don't have to necessarily be communicating with anyone specifically, and they might not get any responses, especially on something like Twitter. You might just tweet something and no one sees it and nothing happens, but it's still a social media site. And you'd still be using social media. So I think that's interesting.
Yeah, I mean, the way that I recommend people use social media is actually to think of themselves keeping a visible bookmark or set of bookmarks, because I don't know if you remember the first time you declared anything on social media. You know, I don't know what the first place where you put your opinion out into the world to be seen in a public domain. You might have felt quite anxious about that. Did you, your first posts?
I think my first post was on Instagram when I was about 12.
12.
So I wasn't anxious about, I'm 21, so yeah, it was 10 years ago. But I definitely wasn't anxious because everyone had Instagram and it was all my friends and that's what everyone did. So it was very normal, and like it wasn't necessarily a big opinion, but it was kind of like, oh, this is like the way I did my hair today, or this is where I visited and I liked it. So I think that's probably why I also wasn't nervous. But building on what Alana just said, I'm terrified of Twitter, and I have a Twitter and I still don't know how to use it because I'm too scared.
So that's interesting that so platforms that you're born into, as in you don't even, like when you're young, you don't think about the public, probably because you don't actually understand what this technology is and how it works. So if you see yourselves as communicating with your friends through a platform, but don't necessarily understand that that other people can see those communications, because particularly young people, particularly teenagers, they lock in so much into their friend group that the rest of the world is invisible to them. So they're doing this sort of private communications in a public domain. And I mean, and a lot of parenting problems around young people using social media is the oversharing. The pictures of the girls scantily clad in their bedrooms, which they're just like showing their latest top, right, to their mates. But there's a whole bunch of other people out there who can see that you know, these girls in their tops in their bedrooms, which, you know, the parents are like, oh my God, what are you doing? You know, but the kids can't see the difference. So yeah, absolutely, Anya, if you're kind of born into a platform and you start using it very comfortably before you really understand what it is, particularly around sexuality, actually, and then as an adult, so I think my first social platform was Twitter. And I remember editing and re-editing, like deleting the tweets and then sending them again and then deleting them again until I got to a tone that I was happy with, and then fretting about what other people would say about the things that I had tweeted. And actually, what I found was that you have to let go of your anxiety about how people are going to react in order to use social media. You have to actually just stop caring, which is, of course, where the young people already are. And the way that I stopped caring was that I started thinking, okay, this is for me. I'm using Twitter for me, to capture interesting stories, website addresses, people, quotes that I've heard, things that I think are interesting. I'm capturing them all into one place, which is on my Twitter feed. And then if other people follow me, that's because they're interested in the same things that I'm interested in. And so we can be interested together in these topics. And because they're interested in the same things that I'm interested in the sense that they've followed me, then the stuff that they're tweeting, in theory, I should be interested in what they're saying. So it's like finding your tribe. And I know people talk about that a lot. And so once you kind of have this very kind of almost sort of self-absorbed approach to social media, it makes it a lot easier to use. Yeah, how about the ladies in the room, Anna and Katerina? What were your first uses of social media?
My first social media, apart from WhatsApp that I had earlier, was Facebook, and I went about it very intentionally because I think I was 17 and everyone had Facebook, and I waited like until I was 17 to get one solely for the purpose because I knew we were all graduating. I wanted to stay in touch with my friends, and I think in that sense, cultural background also like makes a bit of a difference because I'm from Germany.
Right.
Data, like worries about data is something like privacy policies in general that is very more prevalent in the way I was brought up and in German culture. I feel like it's all the what's called American mummy accounts where you see the children with their faces and know when they grow up what will they think and all of these things. Like my mom made sure that even my Facebook, you can have settings, and I'm sure when you were 12, your mom did the same for your Instagram. It wasn't public.
I was not allowed an Instagram. I had an Instagram secret, but it was private and everything was
so that people couldn't find you and it wasn't public apart from your friends. So that's what I did with Facebook, and I think I still have it. And I also found my Twitter handle, but I'm not sure if you could find me because I think I set it to only people with
never find.
No one can find me. Yeah, because so it's Anna Roman ROH MANN and then number 3 because apparently I'm the third one on there.
Say again, Anna.
ROH MANN and then the number 3. Yeah. Oh, yeah.
If you know the specific handle,
yeah,
I guess
I follow a lot of anthropology stuff. But...
Yeah, so using that principle, that I described, which is that you identify topics that you're interested in and people that you're interested in, and you just tweet. You literally just send these things that you're interested in out into the world. Do you like?
I do like. And I also like on Facebook, I have a couple of posts. On Instagram, I do stories because they disappear. I don't have any posts that are on there permanently. So that's kind of but because I intend to use Twitter academically, and I also have an academic TikTok because I'm part of the TikTok ethnography collective, I do want to post on those in a like professional capacity. So that's, I think that's I kind of separated my private accounts from my professional accounts. That would I'm on vacation in Belfast and I'm enjoying Belfast, but I will definitely make like a LinkedIn post being like, oh, come to attend the EASA this year.
Yeah, I'm at EASA and I did this. Yeah, definitely. I think that's another reason why I'm scared of Twitter, because like my Instagram is just personal and then my LinkedIn is very professional, and Twitter is this like in the middle kind of thing where it's a social media network, but I'm using it only for professional reasons, but a lot of my friends have it for personal reasons, and it's whether I connect with them on there, or I don't because I don't want to see non-professional stuff. It's kind of walking that line between, is it like a public professional account or just a personal like fun time?
When I do research on Reddit, I have in my like Reddit profile bio that I'm doing research because that's something that I'm ethically also concerned about, because I don't want to trick people thinking I want to solely be their friends and then they find out later that I'm actually been doing research all the time. So.
No, I think that's a really interesting thing with online research, is that ethics boundary, because obviously my research is on the mothers and the children are posted on these accounts, and it's kind of, you know, I'm taking notes about, oh yeah, and this child did this today and it's on stories, and then they posted a picture of this, and it's a public account, and so it's publicly available and it's in the public domain, but equally it's these children's lives that I'm taking notes on and creating an account of, but it's on their parents' accounts anyway. So I think that's something I've had to think about a lot, is the ethics of online research and stories versus hard posts and stuff like that on Instagram.
But you can overthink it as well. You know, I mean, you know, your messages are drops of water in a massive rainstorm. You know, it's just like your tiny little drops. On the one hand, you know, yes, they can have an impact, but on the other, they also disappear in the noise on Twitter. So it's finding that balance between being, you know, sensitive to your context and your audience and your participants, people you're working with, absolutely, but also being prepared to take a bit of a risk to put yourself out there. We've got a message here from Alana. So I've asked Alana for her Twitter, so I'll send her a message in a minute. But she says, right now, Nepal is a challenging experience, and she's trying to share it on Instagram with family and friends to make sense of it. Oh, that's interesting. So within those things that you're sharing on Instagram, some of them you could kind of pull out, which you feel are sufficiently sort of, you know, ready for public consumption. So you can kind of use it as a drafting exercise in a way of working through. Twitter, on the other hand, I started to use when a colleague told me that I should be on there to interact with other academics, but I feel that also puts pressure on it, and then you freeze when you think about posting something. Is that because you think that they might judge you? Well, go on. I was going to say, because, you know, do we judge other academics? So if we don't judge them, then why are they judging us? And
a generational difference as well, perhaps, because I think some points, the point of social media really is to judge other people a lot,
and also activism, as we talked about. Like there might be some problematic Twitter posts from academics out there,
definitely,
and I'm not going to look for them, but if I see them, I'm not interacting with them because of who I am.
Yeah,
but definitely I do put them in a category of, okay, I might not want to work with that person in the future, or their views just don't align with mine. I think that's what we do when we read books of them as well. Like the implicit judgment if the academics views like agree with us or not.
Yeah.
I mean, there is sort of golden rule about communicating, which is that would you say those things if the person you're talking about was in the room? And so
I'm not clicking on anything, but I do make an implicit judgment for myself. I'm not liking or disliking any post stuff because I'm not that active. But it's, as I said, like reading a book, I form an opinion on it.
Yeah. Okay. And so how about you, Katerina? What was your first social media sharing?
In good German tradition, I've always been very suspicious. I don't use any of these privately. I use WhatsApp, yes, and other similar, like simple social media accounts where you just text basically. I have only a professional persona on Facebook or LinkedIn. Facebook, I deleted at one point. I used it to interact with research participants while doing fieldwork in Morocco. And I tend to delete an account as soon as it has no purpose anymore. Because I don't want, for instance, different projects to mesh. So I'm very wary of using it. And I'm finding it really interesting how different people engage differently with it. So every household that I work with has a very different approach to using social media. Funnily, and I'm doing research in Germany right now, people are not critical, the people I work with, which surprises me because Germany has that reputation and is in the kind of in the media and in media scholarship, it's known to be a country where surveillance is a big topic and what happens to your data and all of that. And I'm not finding that among my research participants, as if I think it kind of goes to this idea of Instagram, also like Alana said, you use it to communicate with friends. And it's kind of an intimate thing, but it's out there. And I think that's exactly the case with my research participants, that they think, well, Instagram is private. But then I had a mom who blocked her daughter's TikTok account when the Ukraine war started because she didn't want to see the pictures and the videos that circulated. But her daughter got a different account through a friend and kept using it. So there's so many different nuances to it. Yeah, but I'm highly skeptical of it. It's also I think.
Well, part of it as well is and this is actually the ongoing debate that anthropologists have, which we sort of referred to a bit in our sort of blurb about the workshop, is the role of the anthropologist in society, and what we see with social media is that the anthropologist's identity is conflicted again, like yet again. There's like this conflict in the sort of social sort of structures that have emerged, which help, which mainstream audiences adopt, and then anthropologists come in with sort of anxieties around representation, their own presence in the on the platform, on how to actually move cleanly between different worlds. You know, a lot of anthropologists now, particularly those who go to Indigenous communities in faraway places, which are very difficult to get to physically, can arrive and find that people have got phones, and that's happening more and more. And so that kind of desire that they might have to have one identity and life which works for this community that they walk into, and wanting to not necessarily keep it separate strategically, but to have a different identity in the kind of academic city that they happen to work in. And that was always a tension. And what's happening is that you now can't walk into a community and then disappear back to academia anymore because they find you. And that's actually causing quite a lot of tension because of the affluence that academics usually have, that they're usually on really quite substantial salaries comparatively to these communities. And what are the implications of that if these people then find you and understand you as they might have known you probably were wealthier than them, but they actually understand you as really quite a wealthy person. And so what are the implications of that? So yeah, this is the conflict that we deal with, which it goes sort of above and beyond just having a presence on social media that anyone might have anxieties about. So it's me as an individual having a presence on social media, and then me as an anthropologist in my multiple identities and conflicted state about what it is to be an anthropologist being on social media, which is, you can end up why people end up just sort of avoiding it. But then at the same time, you get this suspicion because most people, I would say these days, certainly from my experience, have some kind of social media presence. I don't know if you would agree with that. And so they look for you. And if they can't find you, then they're suspicious of you. So that causes its own problem to not have some kind of identity on some kind of platform somewhere. You know, I worked with an academic who had 2 Facebook profiles, one in her maiden name, which was her academic identity, and one in her married name, which was her kind of wife home identity. I had a problem with that because I was like, it felt like, what? So I can't know you, like I was the academic colleague and not allowed to be friends as as part of her home life, and I felt a bit offended.
But I would disagree with that. I think there are lots of people who actively stay away privately from social media. There are lots of people who cultivate just one type of person on social media and leave out deliberately other parts of it. And I think that's common knowledge, I would say, right? That you can't find everyone and that it's not necessarily then suspicious. I don't know, maybe that's just.
I think the generational thing, I think the younger generation is now moving back to this kind of, actually, I don't owe you my presence online. And I don't, like, I recently just unfollowed a load of people on Instagram, reduced a load of my followers, because I was thinking, I don't talk to these people, I haven't spoken to them in years. I don't want them to see what I'm doing. And so I think there is a movement kind of towards that. Well, I'll be professional on Twitter and I'll have my professional Twitter or LinkedIn or whatever. But further than that, I'm not going to give you any more of me because I'm living my life like this and it's none of your business kind of thing. So I think that's interesting, looking at the movement back to that kind of privacy after we've had this massive movement to social media.
Oversharing. We have a new person in the room. I feel like we should find out who they are.
Yeah, can you hear me well?
Yes.
Okay. Hi, my name is Thiago Barbosa. I'm a PhD candidate at the University of Bayreuth in Germany.
The Germans are well represented.
Yeah.
Okay, you're also from Germany. And should I say why I'm here? I don't know.
Yeah. Like, tell us your social media identity. Can we find you?
Yeah, you can find me. You can also follow me. That's okay. I don't mind. Yeah, I mean, I do have a Twitter for academic stuff, and I also keep other social media separate from my academic persona. And I think my generation, like millennials had some years to figure that out, also making mistakes. And I think I would agree that younger people are better in splitting different ways they perform themselves, present themselves. And I think that's fine. We just adjust the room, the way we present ourselves, and this includes social media rooms, digital rooms. But why am I saying this? So yeah, I was interested in coming here also because I'm a member of a research group called Anthropologic Global Inequalities, and I run their Twitter account. And there we also had, in this group, we had some discussions about how we talk about certain things, also because our research deals with anti-racism, anti-fascism, and difficult topics, which are not politically too easy in Bulgaria. So there are different concerns. So yeah, that's why I'm here.
And how do we find you? If we Google you, what do we Google?
Google, if you if you Google me, or if you search on Twitter, it's my name, like Thiago with a Thiago.
Thiago.
My Twitter handle, I should know.
TH.
Sorry, TH. And then letter P, and then space again, and Barbosa, that's the last name. Barbosa.
There?
No, that's not me. That's funny. I should know my Twitter handle.
It's okay. People don't.
So that's not. Is it all one word?
Let me double check.
Okay.
I think it's really interesting though what you were saying about kind of activism and anti-fascism and stuff, because I think social media, especially TikTok, I feel is a really great tool for people to kind of reach out and spread things further than typical mainstream media would spread things. And I almost did my dissertation on TikTok and how, activism is on there. It would be great if you could war to come along and COVID and all of this stuff. But yeah, that's really, I think it's an interesting thing to consider as well, because Twitter is definitely one of those things that spreads news that isn't in the traditional media and stuff. So I think that's really interesting that you have that account. And I wondered how you feel about social media in terms of activism. And how useful it is and how practical it is.
Yeah. Sorry, Jessica. I just followed you on Twitter, so maybe it's easier.
Okay.
Yeah.
Not to put you on the spot.
No, yeah, it's fine. Yeah, I mean, yeah, I think as a group, because there's research group, I think we use Twitter mostly to communicate about our activities. And even then, I don't know, I feel like social media in Germany is so segregated. Twitter does not reach a wider public in Germany. It does reach academics maybe, but also not the older ones, because they're not on Twitter, they're still on Facebook. It does not reach students in Germany, I feel. They're not on Twitter. So we were really considering, should we go somewhere else? Should we have an Instagram profile? But then Instagram is so messy, and so it's much more difficult to communicate written content on Instagram. And it's not referential, so it's not indexical. So it's, I don't know. But we basically use Twitter to communicate our activities and connect to other groups that have similar work. Yeah. But in terms of like actually reaching the public for that kind of anti-racist work, I think social.
Yeah, and I think so. I'm just sort of demonstrating here, sort of how what you tweet can be weighty, or what you share can be weighty, but also it can be light. And people don't mind. They're like drops. You just sort of drop them out there. But what you do in the process of doing it is you actually create an interconnected web, a little mini one. So now we're all connected to each other. Yeah. So I tweeted one tweet, which was a summary of the people. Oh, have they dropped out? I can't see them anymore. Well, I'll carry on with you, Alana. So you can see the anthropologists that we found. So I put them all together and tweeted them in one go. So all those people will see that message. They'll see each other in the same message. So there's like a sense of community there. And then they'll see the other people who I've then subsequently tweet, which are you guys. So I've added that. But also, if at any point in the future you think, oh, I can't remember who those anthropologists were that we were talking about at that conference, you can find them, you know, because it's all in the public domain, and it's like Twitter looks after it. You don't have to worry about it in your notes or in your sort of documents that you've recorded. You can really quickly find a whole conversation that has evolved over time, and all the people who are involved in it. And if you want to find any of those people, you can get to them straight away. So it's so to some extent it's overcoming your anxieties about using social media, because you see the benefit of it, and the benefit is greater than the anxiety. And once you get into the habit of sort of, you know, posting stuff, that anxiety lessens anyway, because you just get used to it. You get used to saying things. You realize that the little sort of pithy comment that you send out as a droplet of water into a rainstorm of conversations, no one's really gonna really notice what you say. So actually you can get away with it. And if you don't like it, you can always delete it. You know, if the next day you wake up and go, oh, I can't believe I said that, you can just delete it. You know, no one knows. We've got someone else that's joined us. BT, hello. We've actually lost the main group. Do you want to say hi?
I just wanted to listen a little bit.
Okay. Are you on social media?
Only rarely.
Which platforms do you use?
Only Facebook, and that's why my people I'm doing research on are on Facebook.
Ah, okay.
I'm not using it at all privately.
Ah, because this is something that's really coming out in the conversations, is identity for anthropologists is already challenging, because you kind of carry these multiple identities depending on which groups you're in, where you're doing your research. And so that historically anthropologists could have these multiple identities and keep them quite separate from each other, because there wasn't the interconnectivity that the digital realm actually enables, is that you can be internationally connected to anyone at all time. And so the challenge then becomes is that if you're used to being able to travel across different realms and keep them quite cleanly separated from each other, which a lot of anthropologists do, then when there's the social media realm where the people particularly that you're doing your research with wants to find you.
Yes, but fortunately enough, the people I'm working with are not very much interested in these platforms. They are just what they are sending is not very personal, not very yes. I'm surprised about that.
Okay, so what group is it?
Pardon?
Well, what's the group? What are they?
It's Mexican migrants in Florida, which
Okay.
I know since 40 years.
Ah.
So it's more or less like a family.
Yeah, and even are there children? Are the young ones using social media?
Then yes, but they're not so much into it. And so it's I'm just looking what they are sending and being informed somehow, but I'm astonished about what they are sending and how rarely they are sending things.
Uh-huh.
So it's yes, but I'm quite happy with it. I have sufficient to do.
Have you looked on other platforms like Instagram or TikTok?
Not really.
Yeah.
I'm not very much into that. That's why I was popping in to see what's going on in the research on media. Yes, media, but I'm very well occupied, so I don't have just time to sit and look around.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, part of it is we need to follow our communities where they go, you know, when we do research. And so it's if they go to places that we don't necessarily want to go, what do we do next? You know, that's quite interesting.
Yes, but as I say, I'm astonished. That I don't find a lot of informations
Yeah.
about the migrants, about the Mexicans in Mexico, the village. They're not so. They're phoning very much. They're using the. They're probably every second day they have a phone call and inform each other.
Do they use WhatsApp as well?
And not really.
Oh, that's interesting.
Now I'm in contact with, let us say, one of my daughters, the daughter of the family in the village, and she uses WhatsApp. So we communicate every half year about what's going on, but it's also not very going deeply. It's much more asking, are you okay? And is the family okay? And that's it. They're much more used on chatting and speaking to each other, and that for hours.
I suppose there's maybe an established relationship with you in particular that they enjoy, and that's the relationship they have with you. And so particularly if you're not that keen on these platforms.
No, I observed it when I'm visiting them in Florida. I observe it that they are phoning all the time and they are never on Facebook.
Okay.
It's really one person is on Facebook, but she is sending once in 2 months something. So they're really not using it very much.
Okay. All right. So we're going to have I know I'm conscious that Nona has come online as well. We were going to have a little break now. Thanks, Peter. Whilst we establish what happened to the other half of the team. So if we just come back in 5 minutes, while I identify, I'll get in touch with Anya and find out what's happening. Okay, so if we just have a 5-minute break now, and then we can find out from you, Nona, about yourself. Yeah, is that all right? Okay, so 8:05. Oh. Are we back?
Hi, Jessica.
Hello.
Hi, I have missed the first part this morning. Can I still participate or is it bad right now?
Of course you can. We've actually lost. Have you heard that the whole conference, the internet link has gone down?
No, really?
Or at least the room where we were in and the nearby area. Anya, who's there physically, has they just disappeared all of a sudden. So we carried on and she carried on. So luckily.
And I thought you're doing a break.
we were. Well, I did the break to find out what was going on. But anyway, we can carry on with you. I mean, I don't know if you want, because we're doing another session. We've got 2 today.
Oh, maybe I just come to the second session then.
Yeah, or I mean, or we can carry on. I mean, the stage we're at now. Well, I'll tell you what. I'll run you through what we've done so far, because Alana hasn't come back on yet. Alana's in an internet cafe in Colombia. I love that. Yeah, can't speak, but may or may not come back at some point. So yeah, this was just, we did intros, and then we did oh hi, yeah, Alana's back. I'm just summarizing to know what we've done so far. And then we talked about sort of what social media accounts people use, and then how it could be used potentially for anthropological work, and people shared their experiences. And that's what we got to. So I don't know if you want to tell us a bit about, what social media you use and what you find interesting about it.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I've been in a citizen science project for the last year, basically. And my colleague there, a physicist, he was really good in social media. Like, he's using Twitter all the time and using it for asking questions, like also summarizing articles he has written. And I find this really fascinating. And
what's his name?
Christopher Kyber, like Sky Glow is his
Sky.
Yeah.
Glow.
Yeah. Sky Glow Berlin. Yeah, this is him. He already showed up. If you go back to just Sky Glow, you can see him. Yeah.
Sky Glow Berlin.
Yeah.
This guy.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay. Great. So he's not an anthropologist, but he's good. But he's good at he's good at using Twitter. And do you have an identity? Do you have a Twitter account?
Yeah, Nona Berlin, but I'm not doing anything great there. and I'm just getting into this. I used to kind of try to limit my my social media time, because I'm not particularly fond of scrolling the internet, but in recent months I have used it more and more. So yeah. So I'm like in the process of creating my, let's say, Twitter identity.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I'm also interested in science communication. This is why, because I have a little formation as a journalist, like specialized journalist in specialized journalism, and I mean, obviously we cannot get around social media anymore. So I'm just.
No, we can't. We can't get around it. So what's your Twitter?
It's NONA Berlin.
But it's interesting how people choose their names as well. So why Berlin?
Well, because I lived in Berlin when I created my Twitter account, and then I wanted to change it, and it was not possible. I mean, I wanted to change my short name,
yeah,
and then I realized, oh no, I have to create a new account, and since now I work in Berlin again, it's actually true again.
Yeah, it's funny, these things that you do without necessarily thinking them through significantly, then become really fixed, don't they?
Yeah, but I mean, this is like, I don't know, 10 years ago that I created that. So I rarely used it for a long time. And I've been thinking about just merging it with a new account with my real name, and then make it more professional.
Yeah, well, okay, so let's just welcome back people. It seems like we're back online again. Hi, everyone.
Sorry about that, everyone.
That was amusing. Nepal. Alana, you're in Nepal, not Colombia. So you're looking at doing research in Colombia, but you're in Nepal. Sorry, what's the Colombian connection? Okay, right, great. So let's regather. We're just adding. Let's say hi to it's Brazil. Okay, to say hi to Nona. You'll see that I can't actually follow anyone at the moment because I'm not allowed, because I follow too many people. You see, I've got 5,000 people. I've been on Twitter for 11 years, maybe longer. Oh, there we go, 2010. Yeah, 12 years. And I've never like strategically tried to follow lots of people. It's just organically over the past 12 years, I've followed people and I've worked in different fields and and I've ended up following 5,000 people. Twitter only allow you to follow up to 5,000 people. So now here I am trying to do my work, trying to engage with people and use Twitter, you know, it's like carry on using Twitter the way I've always used it before. But I have this ceiling, which is that I have to unfollow people if I want to follow more, which is a new problem for me, which I find very frustrating. Okay, so we'll add. So what's your research about, Nona?
My research is about socio-technical issues. Like I've done a lot of research on lighting. This explains my Twitter background image. So
lighting,
yeah, from a sociological perspective. Like the introduction of LED lighting and how people deal with light in cities and how this kind of affects their way of being in their city and controversies around light and light pollution and so on. And then now in my new project, it's an ERC project at the Institute of European Ethnology in Berlin at Humboldt. I'm focusing on controversies around 5G, like the new mobile radiation standard. And yeah, so that's exciting. And it's again about electromagnetic radiation and health impacts, because there obviously people are concerned about potential health impacts. But my feeling is that health impacts might be worse for lighting, given that we do not really have thresholds for lighting in our cities. And 5G is discussed a lot, like in some groups, but as far as I'm aware, the scientific evidence doesn't really show that under the such threshold it really causes serious health effects. So it's really interesting why these conversations or these controversies still continue to raise people's interest and create public attention and so on.
So as people are talking and as we're communicating, I'm sharing on Twitter what we're doing, because if at any point you wanted to return to these people and conversations, you can find them in one neat thread, or hopefully neat thread. Sometimes for some reason, even though you add a tweet here, it doesn't materialize, but it'll be in the Twitter somewhere, in my Twitter thread somewhere. So, and what I'm trying to do is demonstrate how anthropologists can use social media whilst using it. And you'll see that with this tweet that I just tweeted, I use hashtags. So is everyone familiar with hashtags? Do you use, yeah, these days, particularly if you watch Love Island, you can't miss hashtag, can you? But these are really good for finding people to follow, because you can go into that you can go into those words, and it's good for other people to find you. So it's a really useful mechanism for identifying your communities, because one of the things we've been discussing is social media. It's difficult to see things pass you, like to come by. You have to go looking for them. And so then that's when keywords and promotions become really important. Right, so moving on, what we wanted to do for the next half of the session is we wanted you to have a think about, so during the break, we want you to have a think about, so our proposition is one of the biggest challenges for anthropology, and particularly if you think about keyword searching, is that there are a lot of terms and concepts that anthropologists use that nobody has ever heard of, right? Nobody's heard of anthropology, nobody's heard of ethnography. So if these are our two key terms that we understand and we know to search on, if we want people to find us, then how can we reach them? How can we engage in dialogue through social media if we use terminology to describe ourselves and what we do that nobody actually understands or recognizes? So there's two ways of doing that. One way is to use other terms and seek out people or work with people using terms like culture, which of course, as we know in anthropology, is very contentious in terms of how we understand it and use it. Or we can try and educate people as to what anthropology is and what ethnography is. And so one of the things that we wanted to do was to play with memes. Is everybody familiar with what a meme is? People used memes in their research. Tell me a bit about what you think about memes. Anyone?
Go for it.
Yeah. I actually wrote a paper on it.
Ah, brilliant. What's the paper?
Starter pack memes. I don't know if you're familiar with these. It's a different sort of memes, but there are the starter packs where people put pictures in kind of what would you need to fulfill that social stereotype.
I do know them.
Yeah,
I do. I almost put one on.
yeah.
That's like
Starter pack for anthropologists and stuff. I'm sure
Yes.
they exist. And I wrote about the basic white girl starter pack and racism and kind of how that draws on ideas of biology, but also whiteness. And think that, oh yeah, that's my dissertation for master's.
Is that the paper?
That's not the paper, but that's also one of the Twitter online hashtag thing.
Okay. Okay.
Social media too. But it is, but yeah. So how people use those to draw on cultural figures of whiteness and gender identity. And
fascinating. Well, if you could tweet your paper on memes to us, that would be good. If you can reply. So here we put so we might put Anna has also researched or written about social media and memes. So here's so there we go. So I've just tweeted your article. So if anybody wants to find your article, they can find it here. Yeah. So excellent. Okay. Just returning to our conversation. So what we want to do with you guys now is we want to well, let's just look at these memes first and think about them. Does anyone want to pick one and comment on it?
Can somebody maybe define what a meme
is? Anya, go on.
This is really difficult because my mum is constantly asking me and my sister what a meme is because she doesn't have any social media. Anthropologically, sociologically, a meme, linguistically as well, a meme is kind of like a transfer of social knowledge, if I'm not wrong. But an internet meme is this kind of idea of a collective consciousness or a kind of shared understanding. And so it's referencing something that people will understand in a kind of comedic way. And then, sometimes it's not necessarily just comedic, it can be raising awareness, things like that. And
So the ones on the screen you can see, like the one in the middle is a screenshot from a television show. And you don't really need to have watched the television show to understand it, because you can kind of get the emotion from it. And they're normally pictures or accompanied by pictures, and then written text as well to kind of create this new meaning. But then there's ones like the littleness one at the top. There's loads of littleness memes at the moment, because I don't know who started it, but someone started it with just littleness and then a funny comment, and it's been picked up by brands who are doing it. I know NASCAR did one, Formula One did a couple, and it's kind of just like a way to express yourself and say like, oh, haha, this is who I am, potentially poking fun at yourself, potentially just kind of making a claim about your identity. But memes in general are kind of this social consciousness, and I think there are some memes that are very detailed in that it's 3 or 4 layers of meaning. And if you've missed one of those layers, you might not necessarily understand all of it, but you can still understand some of it. I don't know if you have anything to add.
I like what you said about that. There's a lot of like, if we think about things that might be similar to memes and GIFs, but those are moving images, so memes, or at least from my understanding, can never be moving. So it's always a still picture, and like to repost and reshare as well.
Any other comments? Does anyone have a favorite one? I particularly like the one on the bottom right, which says anthropology is where they see societal events unfolding, which they have been predicting for years. And because what I like about this one is that I don't quite understand what they mean. Like it could mean multiple things all in the same image, and I really like that they've that the ambiguity in the meaning is part of the meaning.
Yeah.
You know, because it's like, okay, is that because they're indifferent? Is that because they're saying I told you so? Are they covering their anxiety? You know, it's like, what's the intention? And of course, like you were saying, Anya, about how you know there's multiple layers of meaning and you might not understand it, is that, are these kids recognizable? Is this part of another kind of dialogue? Are they like from a film or something, or is it just somebody's kids? Or are there other memes out there which are also making jokes about this particular meme that I don't know about? And I know that all of that's there because I understand the kind of practice of what meme making is. Not enough to go out and look for them, but I kind of like that there's the possibility of additional meaning that I don't know about. Yeah,
Definitely. And I think memes a lot of the time, it's not exactly clear what they're trying to say. It's just like there's some sort of ambiguity somewhere and it's not clear exactly. But I do think there's a lot of memes that are the same format that are just different text put on them, which is interesting because then you kind of recognize it immediately and you know, oh, this is a meme making fun of something, or oh, this is a meme that's trying to show shock at this thing. And so you don't actually need to look at the pictures anymore. You can just kind of scan it and read the text to see what this particular post is saying.
yeah, and you can overthink it, like, you know, I see, Alana, you like the boys one as well. The other one I like is the guy, and I don't know who the actor is, but standing, looking kind of sort of, you know, semi-formal, and then this other guy coming up behind him, and you know that like for me that's a slightly uncomfortable meme because I don't think of anthropologists as being aggressive. If anything, like the opposite of aggressive. And so this guy is smiling, but he's also clearly a tough guy, right? So it's like, oh, you know, what if anthropologists were actually tough? You know, what would that, how would that meaning be different? You know?
Yeah.
Does anyone know who the guy, like what show it's from? Or
I think that was the premiere. The guy that's standing in the front is Henry Cavill. The guy in the back is Aquaman, Jason Momoa, and I think they know each other. And he wanted to surprise him while he was giving an interview. So that's why I was like, he's kind of coming up behind his friend.
A bit mischievous.
Yeah,
Yeah. Ah,
that's really aggressive because I know the backstory and I know that Henry Cavill was giving an interview. And Jason Momoa just wanted to
Interrupt
in a
and
funny way.
make fun.
be playful.
Yes.
Ah, so Anthropology says playful people.
But it's a very popular meme format
Yeah.
for a lot of other topics and ideas. So
Yeah. Okay, so now we want you guys to do some of your own. Now, because of time, I sort of skipped over to some extent the key concepts and terms that we could use. And we could do this together or on our own. It's like up to you. But we've created, or we've Andy's identified a set of blank memes, which are here. We can we've put them in a Google Doc and shared them with you. So if you want to, I'll just have that again. If you wanted to look for them on your phone, maybe, or on your computer, it's https tinyl.com and then EASA2022 Lab19. Oh, Nona's got a question.
Yeah, I just wanted to ask, like, regarding memes, how is that related to data protection topics and so on? I mean, like, or copyright issues. I mean, so can you just use all the pictures you find and put them into a meme, because a meme is a special form of expression? I've never really thought about this thoroughly.
Well, I mean, what I know about IP, intellectual property, is that the biggest concern is passing off. So the biggest concern with intellectual property is that you try and represent somebody else's work as your own. And so if you use an image for a purpose that isn't the same as its original purpose, that's when you can get away with it, basically. And particularly parody, satire is recognized as not an attempt to appropriate IP. And the reason why I know this is because I worked with a company that was doing a lot around NFTs. And they were posting, they're a platform for artists to share their NFTs. And I was reviewing, this is sort of part of my work, I was reviewing the submissions for inclusion onto the platform and sort of sales of NFTs. And I queried a lot that there are a lot of artworks that were coming in which had like McDonald's logos on them, that used Disney characters. And I was sort of saying, you know, you sure this is appropriate for something to be registered as an NFT? And this was explained to me as the reason. Well, it's because it's satire, because these artists are using these things to so yeah, I wouldn't worry about that if we're making jokes.
Cool, thank you.
Yeah. So has anybody found a meme? Should we go through them? We can have a little look at them. So we've got Little Miss Sunshine.
I think the easiest way if people do want to make memes is downloading it onto your phone or computer and then using like Snapchat or Instagram or Word, and just basically putting a text box in the places where there would be words to get the meaning. And I can explain the meaning of the kind of format of the memes if anyone doesn't understand a certain meme.
Oh, Nona wants to tiny L again. Oh, I tell you what, I can just post it into the chat box for the online people, can't I? But let's do some example ones while we're at it. So our ideal scenario is that we create one that we then tweet. But let's so first of all, in terms of common anthropological concepts or terms, maybe we could think of a particular concept that we want to get out there around anthropology, and then look for an image that will help us tell that story. Maybe that's one way around we could do it. So is there anything about anthropology that we would how about something around identity in social media? Right, so something that sort of represents the anthropologist's anxiety about how to represent themselves in a social media context. So like this one, for example, it could be something like, the first one is anthropologist, something like, this is me, friends in the community. And then this one could be university. The pink one would be the university. Like the anthropologist sort of represents himself as, you know, open-minded and thoughtful and engaging and sort of wanting to talk to people in the community. And then you look a bit closer and behind them is this institution that looms, you know, it demands all sorts of things from them, which can be paralyzing. Does that resonate? Shall I? So let me see. So in order to make one, so you download it.
I think if you put it on Google Docs or Word, and then you just do a normal text box. Oh yeah, you can put it on a slide as well.
So
Anywhere that you can make a text box should allow you to.
Oh. So I insert image. So then if I want to add some text, so I might put on this and then there I have that as an anthropologist.
If you just download and put it on Docs or Word or anything that you can make a text box, and then you just put the text box on top.
And how do you actually find these images?
I just Google, because if you search on social media networks, we just had a question about how to find the images. If you search on social media networks, they'll be filled in basically. So most of these I got just from Google, and I just put in like blank
memes. So we Google blank memes.
But there are some websites that specifically have like a selection of memes that you can choose from and stuff like that. But I found this is on Google, so yeah, you can see. And some of them are really popular, and some of them are weird memes that no one's ever seen before.
Look, here's a website where you can go to the meme, make it, and then immediately share it on Twitter. So we could do one of them. What could we do with this guy around not listening and then really hearing around anthropology? So anthropological terms, culture or ethnography.
That will be my term.
What?
Let's see. Okay, cool. Just so you know, Jess, we have 5 minutes left. So
okay.
I don't know if people want
But
to.
let's do one of these. Just so that we've achieved our goal, which is to create a meme. Does anybody see any of these? Did anyone have anything for the button one? button A, button B around
So this would be like two really difficult choices that you can't decide between.
oh, what? So something
normally-
like go on social media. How about that? Don't go on social media. How about that?
Yeah.
And then publish. So you publish your meme. I think it's Russian. Seems to be a Russian site. Don't know what's happened to it. If I do it again, go on social media. Don't. Can I just share it straight away on Twitter? Yeah, it's not. I don't think it shows my edits. It's also Russian, so I probably shouldn't. But there we go. Should we just take some comments now about your thinking, your reaction to our proposal? Oh, here we go. Known as someone. Let's see, click to download. Downloads. Ah, that's nice.
I think I misspelled divide, right?
Yeah, divide is, yeah,
Sorry.
divide. Oh,
So
that's,
don't use it in the.
I won't tweet it. Yeah, will you tweet it to us later?
I can, yes. I also didn't manage to change the color of the writing in Paint. That the black is not so nice.
Yeah, but you've got the idea. You've absolutely got the idea. And what it'd be really nice to do is if we all set ourselves the tasks of, you know, every now and then, maybe once a month, coming up with a anthropology related meme and just feeding it out to the world and tagging ourselves, because we've all got our Twitter accounts now. If you look at mine, you can find everybody else's, and then we can all like it and retweet it. So we create this kind of sort of nucleus. And there are other anthropologists out there already on social media, so we can tag them as well and they can retweet it. And this is how we can sort of feed awareness of anthropology out to mainstream audiences using social media platforms. Yeah, any other thoughts or questions? We get to thank you.
Thank you very much for coming.
Okay.
I'm going to stop the recording now.
Okay.